Today we're going to discuss improving your active listening skills. I have to say that one of the most rewarding skill sets that I've learned, because it's really affected my personal growth and also become the biggest gift that I could give to someone else, was learning the skill of becoming an active listener. Now, that phrase itself might be confusing to people because, again, it was a skill set I had to learn. It was not something that I was born with as a skill. Active listening, meaning being fully present when you're in a conversation with someone. Have you ever noticed that you might be sharing something that's really important to you, or you just want to connect with somebody, and as you look at them, you can tell just by the expression on their face that they're not paying attention to anything you're saying? And as you think about that, how does it make you feel? I know for me, it made me feel like I was not important to them. What I was sharing had no meaning. And through some different processes, I learned how to turn off my own brain when I was getting into conversations and actually be an active listener. You know, when I was younger, the most important thing in a conversation was to make sure that people understood what I was trying to share with them. You know, my perspective was the most important thing. And what I learned over time was actually the best way for me to grow and the best way for me to nurture a relationship was to stop caring about them understanding my point and start caring about me understanding theirs. You know, so often we are in a conversation and we're not paying any attention to what the person's saying because we're just waiting for our turn to talk, or we're so focused on wanting to make sure we get our point across that we're actually having a conversation with ourselves in our own heads while the other person's talking to us. It was funny, there was a facilitator who did an exercise, and the point of the exercise was to bring two people on stage who had totally opposing belief systems regarding a specific topic. And the topic that this facilitator chose was it ethical for someone to sleep with someone that they just met? And the one person, very religious in their viewpoints, and the other person, very open-minded in their views. And the idea was for person A to share in 2 minutes or less why they believed that it was ethically okay to sleep with someone that you just met. Person B was not allowed to counter, was not allowed to debate. They were just supposed to listen. And when person A was done, their job was to repeat back to the person who just shared the details that would allow that first person to know that they were understood by person B. They had to feel completely understood. Now, as the facilitator setting us up, I'm sitting there going, okay, maybe 3, 4, 5 interactions. They'll tweak it. They'll get it down. They'll get to that point. 45 minutes later, person A finally was able to say, yes, I feel you understand me now. 45 minutes for understanding somebody's perception? I really had to think about that. It's amazing how many of us enter into a conversation and we're stuck in what we call our model of the world, meaning that as you've grown up, each person has different experiences. They come up with different belief systems about themselves, about other people, about how the world operates. They have different values, different rules based on the environment they grew up in. And this is the filter of how they view everything that goes on around them. To make this a little easier, imagine that when you were born, you had a pair of blue sunglasses that just wrapped completely around, and everything that you saw through this blue filter. And another person, when they were born, was given these red sunglasses, and everything that they saw came through this red filter. No matter how much you looked at and discussed something that was sitting in front of you, the two of you would never agree on what you were seeing. That's model of the world if you're locked in that perception. Becoming an active listener for me was that shift of not caring that you understand what I'm trying to say. It's about me taking off my sunglasses, throwing them off to the side, and looking at the world through your sunglasses. Now, that's hard for people to do. So how do you accomplish seeing things from that other person's perspective? It's questions. One of the best ways to become an active listener is when someone's sharing something with you, ask them questions for specificity. As they share something, when they're done, please don't interrupt them. But when they're done, say, when you were talking about this experience that you just had, how did you feel? And let them respond. And after they finish responding, well, now when that happened, what were you thinking? The idea is to do everything you can. Ask them questions to elicit information that will allow you to see it from their perspective. The other thing that's very important, if you're going to be an active listener, is to feed it back to make sure that you are seeing it from their perspective. So important that you make sure you don't interrupt them in the process. And I'm going to explain why in a moment. When they stop, say, now what you just shared with me, just so I make sure I understand this, you said, and you feed it back to them. Do I understand you correctly? If someone did that to you, how would that make you feel? Would you really feel like they cared, that they were communicating? I'll tell you, for me, one of the personal rules that I have that it doesn't make me mad at somebody, but what it does is it shuts me down from being open and communicating with them. As you've probably learned from this video series, I'm pretty open in what I share with people. And I'm okay with that. Unless someone interrupts me, they've asked me a question, I'm responding, they interrupt me with something that's not relevant to what we're just talking about. At that moment, I feel like they really didn't care what my answer was. So I'm not rude, I just don't pursue that conversation any farther. I close down, I don't share it with them. Being present for someone when they're sharing thoughts, ideas, hopes, dreams with you is one of the greatest gifts that you can give. And that also comes in when a third party tries to interrupt you. Have you ever been having a conversation and you're really working on connecting and all of a sudden, third person walks up and, hey, how you doing? And the whole conversation shifts and you're sitting there going, I guess my role wasn't as important as I thought it was. I didn't even notice I did this. People pointed it out for me because they were saying, something I really respect what you do is if somebody comes up, you'll actually put your hand up and stop the person who's trying to interrupt and keep your focus with the person you're talking to. I never realized that that was a part of my actions until somebody pointed it out. And when they did, I saw that the reason I did that was because I knew how I felt when people interrupt me or when someone drags the attention out to somewhere else. Communication is how we grow. It's how we connect. And it's one of the most important things that you can do is to be present in that moment. So really quickly, to wrap up this episode, I want to give you 2 exercises for this week. Okay, the first exercise is when you're in a conversation with somebody, do everything you can to be fully present, fully aware. If you start finding that you're thinking of what your reaction is going to be, what your response is going to be, what you're going to say, I challenge you to stretch your comfort zone and actually say to the person you're talking to, excuse me, could you stop just for 1 second? I apologize. I got distracted. My mind was over in another place. And what you're saying to me is really important. So could you please say it again? How would that make you feel if someone shared that with you? The second part of the exercise is in your conversations this week, I really would like you to do the best you can to get rid of your model of the world. Take away your preconceptions and do everything that you can to understand the other person's point of view. Make that your priority. Active listening will allow you to grow tremendously because it shapes and reshapes your ideas about yourself, your beliefs, the things that are important to you. It allows you to connect at a deeper level. So again, those 2 exercises this week. I look forward to your feedback. I look forward to how you apply it, and we'll see you again soon. Take care.